Imagine walking down the streets of your favorite city, once vibrant, full of life and opportunity. But now, every corner you turn tells a different story. Tents, makeshift homes, and people struggling just to survive. The homelessness crisis in America's largest cities is escalating beyond what most of us can comprehend. And the numbers are truly staggering. What we're about to share will shock you. From New York to San Francisco, homelessness is at an all-time high. And if you think you know how bad it is, think again. Let's dive into the devastating reality of homelessness in 10 of America's biggest cities. You won't believe what's happening in your own backyard. Let's kick things off. Start with Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. It's a city known for its iconic monuments, its political power, and its wealthy lawmakers. But just steps away from the White House and Capitol Hill, there's a stark contrast. Over 8,000 people are experiencing homelessness right now. That's right, in the very heart of political power, thousands of Americans are living on the streets, in shelters, or in temporary housing. This is a sobering reality for a city that houses some of the most powerful individuals in the world. The homelessness crisis in Washington, D.C. has been growing steadily over the years. In fact, D.C. has one of the highest rates of homelessness per capita in the U.S. While the city has made efforts to address this crisis, the numbers are still staggering. One of the biggest challenges in D.C. is the lack of affordable housing. The cost of living in the capital is sky-high, with rent prices that have soared beyond the reach of many working-class families. And it's not just single individuals who are suffering. There's a growing number of homeless families with children. Another part of the problem is the city's shelter system, which is often overcrowded and underfunded. There's a lack of long-term solutions, and many people are placed in temporary housing without a clear path to permanent stability. Once their time in temporary housing is up, many find themselves back on the streets, caught in a vicious cycle. With the cold DC winters, homelessness becomes a matter of life and death for many who have no place to seek shelter from the harsh elements. What makes this even more concerning is that Washington, D.C. is home to lawmakers who have the power to create systemic change. Yet the crisis persists right under their noses. If such a dire situation can unfold in the capital of the richest country in the world, what does that say about the rest of the nation? Washington, D.C. serves as a painful reminder that homelessness is a national issue, one that requires urgent attention and comprehensive solutions. Number 9. San Diego. Next, let's head over to the West Coast to San Diego. Known for its beautiful beaches, sunny weather, and high quality of life, San Diego is often seen as a paradise. But it's also a city facing a homelessness crisis that's becoming more severe every year. Over 10,000 people are currently homeless in San Diego, and many of them are forced to sleep in their cars, on the streets, or even along the city's famous beaches. The juxtaposition of wealth and poverty here is striking. San Diego's homelessness crisis is driven by several factors, but one of the most significant is the city's incredibly high cost of living. San Diego is one of the most expensive cities in the United States, with rent prices that have skyrocketed in recent years. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is now over $2,500 a month, far out of reach for many working-class residents. Even those with stable jobs are finding it difficult to make ends meet, and once someone falls into homelessness, it becomes incredibly hard to get back on their feet. Another issue is the lack of affordable housing. The demand for housing far outweighs the supply, and many low-income residents are finding themselves priced out of their homes. San Diego has tried to combat this with various programs aimed at increasing affordable housing and expanding shelter capacity. But these efforts have been criticized as too little, too late. The city's shelters are often overflowing, and many people are left without access to basic services like healthcare, mental health support, or addiction treatment. Further complicating the issue is the fact that many people experiencing homelessness in San Diego are dealing with other challenges, such as mental health issues and substance abuse. The city's social services are overwhelmed, and there simply aren't enough resources to provide the necessary support. This has led to a situation where more and more people are falling through the cracks, left to fend for themselves on the streets. San Diego may be known as America's finest city, but for the thousands of people experiencing homelessness, it's anything but fine. The The city's sunny skies and beautiful beaches can't hide the fact that its homelessness crisis is spiraling out of control. Number 8. Phoenix. Now we move to Phoenix, Arizona, a city known for its rapid growth and sunny weather. But despite its booming economy, Phoenix is grappling with a severe homelessness crisis. Over 9,000 people are currently homeless in Phoenix, and the numbers have been steadily increasing. The city's homelessness problem is driven by a combination of factors, including rising housing costs, economic inequality, and a lack of affordable housing options. One of the most dangerous aspects of homelessness in Phoenix is the extreme summer heat. During the summer months, temperatures in Phoenix regularly exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit. For those living on the streets, this isn't just uncomfortable, it's life-threatening. Every year, dozens of people die from heat-related illnesses because they have no place to escape the scorching sun. Phoenix's homelessness crisis is unique in that the weather itself can be a deadly factor. Like many other cities, Phoenix has seen a housing boom in recent years, which has driven up property values and rent prices. As a result, many working-class residents have been priced out of their homes, unable to keep up with the rising costs. Even people who are employed full-time are finding it difficult to afford housing. Once someone falls into homelessness, it becomes nearly impossible to recover, especially in a city where affordable housing is so scarce. Phoenix has made some efforts to address the crisis, including building more affordable housing and increasing shelter capacity. But these efforts have not been enough to keep pace with the growing need. The city's shelters are often full, and many people are left to fend for themselves on the streets. Another factor contributing to Phoenix's homelessness crisis is the prevalence of mental health issues and substance abuse. Many people experiencing homelessness in Phoenix are struggling with these challenges, and the city's social services are overwhelmed. There simply aren't enough resources to provide the necessary support, and many people are left without the help they need. Phoenix may be a city on the rise, but for thousands of people living on the streets, it's a harsh and unforgiving place to call home. The city's homelessness crisis is a stark reminder that economic growth does not always benefit everyone. Number 7. Philadelphia. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, is facing a homelessness crisis that is anything but loving. More than 5,700 people are currently experiencing homelessness in Philadelphia, and the numbers have been growing steadily in recent years. What makes Philadelphia's crisis particularly tragic is the high rate of family homelessness. In fact, Philadelphia has one of the highest rates of family homelessness in the country, with many families living in cars, motels, or on the streets. Philadelphia's homelessness crisis is deeply tied to poverty. Nearly 1 in 4 residents in Philadelphia live below the poverty line, making it one of the poorest large cities in the United States. With wages stagnating and the cost of living rising, many families are just one financial setback, like a medical emergency or job loss, away from losing their homes. Once they fall into homelessness, it becomes incredibly difficult to get back on their feet, especially when affordable housing is in such short supply. In recent years, the city has made efforts to address the crisis. Philadelphia has expanded its shelter capacity and implemented programs aimed at preventing homelessness before it starts. These programs include things like rental assistance and eviction prevention services, which are designed to help people stay in their homes. However, these measures haven't been enough to keep up with the growing need. Many people are still falling through the cracks, especially those struggling with mental health issues or addiction. As winter approaches, the situation becomes even more dire. Philadelphia's winters are bitterly cold, and for those living on the streets, the freezing temperatures can be life-threatening. The city does have warming centers and emergency shelters, but these are often filled to capacity, leaving many without a safe place to sleep. Philadelphia is a city with a rich history and cultural significance, but it's also a city where far too many people are struggling to survive. The city of brotherly love has a long way to go in addressing its homelessness crisis, and until more comprehensive solutions are implemented, thousands of its residents will continue to face the daily challenges of living without a home. Number 6. Houston. Houston, Texas, the 4th largest city in the U.S., is known for its booming economy and rapid growth. However, the city is also grappling with a growing homelessness crisis. On any given night, nearly 3,500 people are homeless in Houston. And while the city has made strides in reducing homelessness, the problem persists and is becoming harder to ignore. Houston's approach to homelessness has been hailed as a success by some. In recent years, the city has focused on a housing-first model, which prioritizes getting people into permanent housing as quickly as possible, rather than requiring them to go through a series of steps like sobriety or employment first. Through partnerships with nonprofits and government agencies, Houston has housed tens of thousands of people who were once homeless. This approach has been credited with significantly reducing the number of people living on the streets. Despite these efforts, however, the number of people experiencing homelessness in Houston is still far too high, and the city faces several challenges in addressing the issue. One of the biggest problems is the rising cost of living. As Houston's population has grown, so have rent prices, making it increasingly difficult for low-income residents to find affordable housing. Even those who are working full-time jobs are finding it hard to make ends meet, and once someone falls into homelessness, it can be incredibly difficult to get out. Another issue is the lack of resources for people experiencing homelessness who are dealing with mental health issues or substance abuse. Many of those living on the streets are struggling with these challenges, and Houston's social services are stretched thin. There simply aren't enough resources to provide the necessary support, and many people are left without the help they need. Houston may be a city on the rise economically, but for thousands of people living on the streets, the city's prosperity is out of reach. Until more comprehensive solutions are implemented, Houston's homelessness crisis will continue to grow, and the city's most vulnerable residents will continue to suffer. Number 5. Chicago. Chicago, the Windy City, is grappling with a homelessness crisis that's both vast and complex. In 2023 alone, over 58,000 people experienced homelessness in Chicago. This includes a significant number of families, veterans, and people with disabilities. As one of the nation's largest cities, Chicago's homelessness crisis is exacerbated by a number of factors, including skyrocketing rent prices, economic inequality, and a lack of affordable housing. One of the most dangerous aspects of homelessness in Chicago is the city's brutal winters. Every year, people die from exposure to the freezing temperatures, and the city's shelters are often filled to capacity during the winter months. Chicago has warming centers and emergency shelters, but they are not enough to meet the growing demand. For those living on the streets, the winter months are a matter of survival. Another major challenge in Chicago is the lack of affordable housing. The city has been losing low-income housing units at an alarming rate, and many people who were once housed are now finding themselves priced out of their homes. Even those working full-time jobs are struggling to keep up with the rising cost of living, and the city's affordable housing programs can't keep up with the demand. Chicago has invested in programs aimed at reducing homelessness, including initiatives to provide housing and support services for those experiencing homelessness. These efforts have had some success, but the sheer scale of the problem makes it difficult to see significant progress. Many people experiencing homelessness in Chicago are dealing with other issues, such as mental health challenges or substance abuse. Number 4. Seattle. Heading to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle has been in the news for its homelessness crisis for years. With over 11,000 people experiencing homelessness, Seattle has declared a state of emergency on homelessness. And the crisis is visible everywhere. Tent encampments line city streets, and shelters are overflowing. The homelessness crisis in Seattle is one of the most pressing issues the city faces, and it's a problem that has only grown worse in recent years. One of the main drivers of homelessness in Seattle is the city's booming tech industry. Companies like Amazon and Microsoft have brought thousands of high-paid workers to the city, driving up housing costs and making it increasingly difficult for low-income residents to afford rent. In fact, Seattle has one of the fastest-growing housing markets in the country, and the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is now over $2,000 a month. For many people, especially those working in lower-paying jobs, it's simply impossible to keep up with these costs. Many people experiencing homelessness in Seattle are actually employed but can't afford the city's sky-high rent prices. Some live in their cars or in RVs parked on the streets. Others have been pushed into tent encampments because they simply have nowhere else to go. The city's shelters are often full, and there's a shortage of affordable housing that has made it nearly impossible for people to find stable living situations. Number 3. San Francisco. San Francisco, the heart of Silicon Valley, is often seen as the epicenter of wealth and innovation. But beneath the surface, the city is grappling with one of the worst homelessness crises in the United States. Nearly 8,000 people are currently experiencing homelessness in San Francisco, and that number continues to rise as the city's housing costs skyrocket and economic inequality deepens. San Francisco's homelessness crisis is driven by the same forces that have fueled its tech boom: skyrocketing housing costs and economic inequality. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the city is well over $3,000 a month, making it one of the most expensive places to live in the world. For many residents, especially those earning minimum wage or living on fixed incomes, it's simply impossible to keep up with these costs. Even people who are employed full-time are finding themselves unable to afford housing in the city. The homelessness crisis in San Francisco is highly visible. Tent encampments line the sidewalks, and many people experiencing homelessness are living in makeshift shelters in parks or under freeway overpasses. The city has tried to address the crisis by increasing shelter capacity and building more affordable housing, but these efforts have been slow to make a real impact. There's simply not enough affordable housing to meet the growing demand, and many people are left waiting for housing that never comes. Adding to the complexity of San Francisco's homelessness crisis is the fact that many people experiencing homelessness are dealing with mental health issues or substance abuse. The city's social services are overwhelmed, and there aren't enough resources to provide the necessary support. Many people are left without access to the mental health care or addiction treatment they need, making it even harder for them to escape homelessness. San Francisco may be a hub for tech billionaires and startups, but for thousands of people living on its streets, the city's wealth is completely out of reach. The homelessness crisis in San Francisco is a stark reminder of the growing inequality in America, and until more comprehensive solutions are implemented, the city's most vulnerable residents will continue to suffer.